Wonderful. So folks are going to continue to join, but we're going to go ahead and hop right in. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining this conversation about the new affiliation between Oats, Senior Planet, and AARP. My name is Bree Clark, and I'm the Associate Director of Program Operations at Oats. Today, I will be moderating this discussion. Just a reminder that this will be streamed on Senior Planet's YouTube channel and recorded. So if you have to leave or you'd like to share this, you will have an opportunity to do so. We encourage you to type any questions you may have in the chat function in today's meeting. As a follow-up, we will be posting an article on seniorplanet.org that addresses any questions that we do not have a chance to cover during our discussion. The goal is towards the end that we get to answer some of your questions live. I'm very excited to welcome Tom Kamber, Executive Director and Founder of Oats and Senior Planet, and Scott Frisch, Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of AARP. I am going to start by asking Tom to please introduce himself, and then we will pass it over to Scott.
Thank you, Bree. Very excited to be doing this today, and it's a big announcement, so I'm excited to get a chance to talk to people about it. I'm Tom Kamber. I'm the founder and executive director of Older Adults Technology Services. Everybody calls us Oats, and we are also the sponsors of Senior Planet, and I am coming to you from New York City today.
And I am Scott Frisch, Chief Operating Officer and CFO for AARP, the world's largest nonpartisan membership organization. And I, like Tom, very excited about this discussion we're going to have today. And Tom is not far away from me. I'm only a few hundred miles north up in Boston during riding out this pandemic north of Boston, Massachusetts.
Wonderful. Thank you both. So Tom, I'm curious if you can share a little bit about the background on the work between Oats, Senior Planet, and AARP, and in general, what does this mean for Senior Planet and Oats?
The background goes all the way back to the founding of Oats. When we first started here in New York City, we immediately reached out to AARP and said that we were starting this, kind of plucky little nonprofit that was working in Brooklyn, helping senior citizens get access to technology. And we connected with an AARP member chapter here in Harlem and started working with them and built a small computer lab at a public housing development and established a working relationship with the team here in the New York State office. This is going all the way back to 2005. And then over the years, we found a lot of different ways to collaborate with AARP. We've been on all sorts of, councils and planning meetings and done some partnerships around helping older adults use technology to be advocates in their communities. And we did a major project with them about 10 years ago that helped us really bring our social engagement work that focuses on social isolation into a much more impactful format. And in recent years, as Oats has been growing outside of our founding environment, which is really New York City, we started moving into other states and rural areas around the country. And we've been looking for a way to advance our kind of growth and get the kind of support that we kind of need in order to reach larger numbers of people. We've been providing really successful programming, but there's a difference between helping 10,000 people in a really important way and finding a way to help 1 million people. And that's been the challenge lately that we've been grappling with. So AARP reached out to us about 1.5 years ago and said that they had this idea to create an affiliation, which is something that they've been working on over there. And it was really intriguing for us because it was an extension of what was already a really successful working relationship, but it was the right time and the right place for us to think about how to do something that would be really have a national footprint and allow us to have a more ambitious scope for the kinds of impact we're looking for.
Excellent. And so I'm going to pass it to you now, Scott. I understand you're excited about this affiliation. How do you view it as helping AARP bring digital literacy to your member network?
Well, thanks for the question, Bree. And again, I'm super excited to be part of this and be at the at day 2 or day 3 here of this affiliation. I think it goes back to something Tom just said a moment ago about wanting to help 1 million people instead of 10,000 people or 50,000 people. At AARP, we talk about our impact to millions, and I use millions with plural, millions of people's lives. So Oats has been on our radar screen for a while, as Tom just outlined, and we've done things together over the years in a variety of ways. And from our perspective, Oats has built a brand with Senior Planet. They've built a brand, they've built a community, they've fine-tuned their model. And what I want to see is taking the power of AARP and the stretch of AARP and the resources that we have that could allow us to take what Oats and Senior Planet and what Tom has done over the last 16 or so years, which ironically coincides pretty closely with my tenure at AARP, Tom. It's another similarity we have. And how do we expand the reach of Oats to impact 38 million members and or the entire 50 plus population in this country? So I think having both of us together in terms of the organizations being affiliated, it just opens up so many more opportunities for both of us to expand what they do, for AARP to learn from Oats to learn from AARP, and drive more value to people out there in the community.
Excellent. I couldn't agree more. Thank you both. So we're going to segue a little bit. Tom, I'm certain that people have navigated to our website. I'm curious if you can tell folks here a little bit about some of the changes they'll see, like our logo and other things they might see changes in our look overall.
Well, sure. We're the way that we present ourselves as an organization, of course, is what people refer to it as the brand, and it's kind of odd being a nonprofit mission organization, which is really about doing good in the world, and of course, the tax framework identifies us as a charitable organization, and then at the same time talking about the brand of the organization, which sounds like this big corporate idea around communicating, but in fact, when we talk to people about what we do and when we make a website or we put together materials, we really work hard to make it clear, what our mission is, what our role in the social service and the social impact environment looks like, and then get all of our communications materials to reflect that in a certain way. And so historically, Oats actually, let me say one other thing. I've only worked in the private sector once in my whole life. Since I graduated from high school, I've worked in universities or nonprofits for whatever it is, 35 years now. But for about 2 years, I had a job in advertising back in the late 90s, and I was a brand guy. They taught me how to do branding, strategy and work with graphic designers and things on logos, and it was really an education for me. So when we got started with Oats, we created this kind of separation between the Oats brand, which is how we talk about the organization itself, which is that OATS logo that many people have seen, I'm sure. And about 15 years ago, we split off a separate brand called Senior Planet. And the idea there was that Senior Planet could really stand on its own as a place where older people could come together with Oats programs, get the benefit directly from what we can produce for people, and share with each other, create kind of a community around older people that are learning together and also contributing to the mission. So it's very, in the corporate speak, they would call that, business to consumer. It's working with individuals to help them with what they need on any given day. And in the backdrop, Oats was also continuing as its own brand as this nonprofit that wanted to be very professional and eventually became the leading voice in the field that, we've worked with 50,000 people. So we have lots of data. We have thousands of pages of curriculum. We've got a whole bunch of PhDs on the organizational team who, we try not to be too wonky, but it's part of the concept. So we had these two different brands. The Oats brand was like a blue logo, and the Senior Planet brand was a red logo. And AARP, of course, has their own logo, which is a red logo. And when we came to look at how to communicate about this, we realized that there was a real potential for confusion. People coming at us, they don't spend all day with us the way that we do necessarily. So they're going to wonder, like, who is Senior Planet? Who is Oats? How do they relate to AARP and things? So we asked this design firm to come in that I actually know from all the way back when I worked in advertising those 2 years. And there's a leading design firm called Pentagram that did, the New York Jets logo and the Brooklyn Academy of Music. And they're some of the best designers in the world. And I kind of begged them to come and help us with this. Somebody said we're losing audio, but I think that might be on their side. Can you hear me okay, Bree?
We can hear you.
Okay, got it. So Miriam, you should check your mic or check your headphones there. So we went to Pentagram. We asked them if they would help us with this, and they agreed to, which was really spectacular. They see it as a way of helping do something meaningful. And they looked at all the different materials. They said, you guys have way too many colors going on here. You've got way too many different kinds of fonts. So let's make it more modern. Let's make it more graceful and elegant, and something that is going to work well with the ARP format. And after probably 5 rounds of back and forth with them, we settled on a new way of presenting Senior Planet and the Oats logo, which uses like a gray color, which is kind of what they call a warm gray, which is very kind of professional and modern, and a little bit of a futuristic dynamic with the lettering, because we took the A from Senior Planet, and we took the A from Oats, and we took out that little crossbar. So that it's actually just like an upward arrow. And I'm sure everybody on this call remembers that NASA used to do that in their logo back in the 1980s. And so now our logo looks a little bit like NASA, but they don't use that anymore. They went back to their original logo from the 1950s. So now our use of the A is like a kind of a little bit of a modern, techie, futuristic thing. And we kept the Senior Planet symbol that we've used for so many years, that has that planet in it, that has the kind of looks like an @ symbol with a planet, and we kept that in red. And that will be appearing on a lot of our materials as the sort of really what the logo symbol that means Oats and Senior Planet from now on. So people will know whenever they see that red symbol with the @ symbol on it, that it's Oats and Senior Planet. And when they look at the Oats logo, they'll see that it's the same font, same color as the Senior Planet logo. It's a little bit more unified and a little bit more graceful. And also for us, that upward arrow for the A means increasing our impact. It means taking the mission for us to another level. So by focusing on this notion of growth and this notion of a partnership that allows us to do more for more people and to be more effective in terms of reaching our mission, we thought that using that sort of upward arrow was really very relevant for the way that we're thinking at Oats right now. So we just put it on the website. You'll still see some migration of the old logos being filtered out of other things on publications and stuff. But over the next few months, we're really going to implement this fully. We also got to work with the people over at ARP. They have a branding department there, and some people with some real communications expertise who gave us a whole bunch of guidance and support as we put it together. So we're really pretty excited about it, and we hope you guys like it as well. And now we have to build more of the, the graphics and the photographs and things around it to support the new look.
Excellent. Thanks, Tom. So I'd like to shift gears slightly. We have been collecting your questions here, those of you in the audience, since we posted about this affiliation announcement on Monday. We're going to start by addressing some of those questions. A lot of them were very similar. And then we'd like to move to questions that are being posted in the chat. So I see some of you are posting your questions in the chat. Please feel free to do so. So Tom, we'll start with you. What does this affiliation mean for Senior Planet participants? Will the ability to join classes and programming that we so love, is that going to shift?
It will not change in any noticeably obvious way, as a result of the affiliation in terms of what we do with you directly on Senior Planet. So the concept here at Senior Planet and what AARP has wanted is they're interested in us expanding and improving and being able to do more. But we're not becoming AARP. If we were going to do that, we wouldn't stay as Oats. So we're actually retaining our organizational and programmatic identity. We're keeping our 501c3 status. We're keeping our board of directors. We're keeping our staff on our headquarters. All of our programs are going to continue the way that we want to do them with our own strategy. And we are an affiliated organization, but we're still going to use our own mission and our own logic and our own expertise to deliver the same kinds of programs that we've done for years and years and years. The only real difference that you should see is you're going to see more of this because we're going to have more resources and more environments that we can draw from. You'll probably see some additional assets, some additional offerings in different languages, some additional offerings in terms of content. we'll be able to be aware a little bit more quickly of what's going on at Aerp. So if there's something that we want to bring in, we can share it onto our network, or they can share us onto theirs sometimes. So there'll be a little bit more connection between the two organizations. But for Senior Planet participants, I don't think you're going to see a particularly dramatic change at all, frankly.
And Scott, I'd like to ask the next question to you. In your view, how will Oats and Senior Planet really contribute to AERP's social mission?
Well, that's why we did this affiliation. So how do we impact, how do we impact the social mission of Aerp and expand it and expand Oats and Senior Planet? And I think Tom just did a nice job outlining what the benefits are to Oats and Senior Planet members, and with more offerings, more opportunities to engage in different ways. Think of it as a force multiplier in some respects. From Aerp's perspective, we have nearly 38 million members. The digital divide is something, or technological illiteracy is something we've been focused on for years. And closing that divide is sort of primarily the impetus for this conversation that we're having right now, and why we are affiliating with Oats and Senior Planet. I'd like to say that if you look at things pre-pandemic, the gap or the divide was very large. The pandemic has sort of acted as an accelerant to reduce that divide. I mean, I've never been on a Zoom call in my life prior to March 13th of 2020, and I've never been on Teams before, prior to probably a month later. But the fact that we're all here engaged virtually now on Zoom, live on YouTube, and people are FaceTiming for the first time and texting for the first time. And there's a large, Tom knows these percentages better than I do. But I think what our goal here is to close that gap, close that divide. So at some point, there is no more myth that older people don't know how to use technology. And it makes that myth disappear. And it's part of one piece of the problem that we have with ageism in this country, that people look at older folks as not being able to handle technology. I think the pandemic has helped close that. I think Oats has been helping to close that. Aerp has been helping to close that over the years. Now you combine the two organizations, and I think, as I said, it's going to be a force multiplier to close that even further. So I'm very excited to see how this plays out, and we're in the very beginning stages, and there's a lot to do. So very excited.
Excellent. So Tom, you've spoken a little bit to sort of what we think AERP is going to add, and vice versa, how we're going to, sort of reciprocally reach our goals. I'm curious if you can speak to our three-part strategy. Now, how are we going to grow now that we're a part of AERP?
I'd be happy to. There's a few parts to the puzzle here at Oats and Senior Planet. And the first piece of the work that we do is really focused on making sure that we're really working closely with older people. We talk about our process of designing programs as co-design, where we try to work as closely with people that we're connecting with in terms of what people need, what the formats should look like. There's been this, years-long running effort to engage people in collaborating with us on our impact models, which is making a difference. And so a lot of our work this coming year is about strengthening that bond. And the collaboration with Aerp will allow us to take a pause and reorganize a little bit so that we make sure that we're making the best connection possible and having the right kinds of outcomes. Some of that, for example, involves measuring differences as more effectively than we have. We can have 1,000 people on a call, or 1,000 people go through the program, but we don't at Oats have the capacity necessarily to get people's feedback and manage that in terms of correcting and building new programs that are more effective or nuanced. So step number one is to make sure that we're delivering world-class programs, and we can do that at scale, which is the second step, where we start talking about, we're going to move from a program where we used to be surprised when we had 50 people on a Zoom. Now we can have 1,000 people on a Zoom. And so the techniques and the way that you organize the classes and the way that we put together the program strategy, it needs to be different. And so the partnership is going to enable us to bring this to a scale that is really significant for us. And I think I just want to pause for a moment and say that as a nonprofit director, you know, for years, we've really worked at Oats to create something that was really wonderful. Somebody earlier in the chat, I was reading up at the top of the chat, said something about, you know, are we going to lose that intimacy that we have and that ability to feel like we're special together? And I can tell you, I promise you, that's not going to happen. Not while I'm here. That's not going to happen. We are an organization that's mission driven, that believes in our people, that has that personal relationship with older adults, and we're never going to let that go. We're going to keep our centers. We're going to keep small group breakouts. We're going to keep the kinds of sessions that we've run. I was on a call this morning with a bunch of people from a rural area, and I got a chance to talk to them one-on-one, even though we're running this program that's, you know, starting to, you know, move across 50 states. We're not going to let go of that personal connection. But at the same time, after 16 years, we know that the difference that we're making is really profound for the people that we're working with. A lot of people are coming to this as a lifeline. They're saying that it's really changing their lives. But the scope of the problem is that there are 20 million older adults that are not online right now. And of the other 20 million that are on, which is more like 25 million, there really aren't a lot of great places for them to really connect and get the training and support to build a community around aging that's really positive and that's really making a difference for people. So our sense of that second piece of the strategy is working with Aerp to get to that scale while retaining that level of quality that I described in terms of the engagement of the first part of the strategy. Now, how we do it, how we're going to test things out and try things. Is everything going to work? Definitely not. I guarantee you it's not all going to be perfect. And just like we've always done, we've been an innovative organization, and people who know Pam and Bree, and I see that Daryl's on this call, some Oats staff, you know, we are the group that will go out there and try something new because we know that it's needed, and we're going to, you know, take a stab at it. And sometimes it goes like, you know, gangbusters and people love it. And other times it flops, and we'll just take the flops and learn from them and recalculate and come out with something new. And so as we work to balance that sort of intimacy and impact with the growth, we're gonna experiment a whole bunch in the next year, and you'll see that. And then the last part of the strategy, and I'm sorry I'm going on for so long here, but the last part of the strategy is that we want to change systems, right? We've been, you know, in each of these geographies where we've got Texas now and Colorado and Maryland and California in addition to New York. We're working on these areas to make a difference. And what we've learned is, you know, we're only, you know, we're 50 full-time people. We're a medium-sized nonprofit organization. So the number of people that we can serve directly is a certain number. But if we work with a big institution, like a large corporation, like say, you know, Capital One Bank or Comcast, who have been partners with us, or even the federal government, which is currently designing a subsidy program that older adults are going to be able to use to get online and help people get subsidized, we can shape what those big institutions do and help them do their job better that serves older adults. And so partly what we're trying to do here is build a model that's a systems changing model as well. Those are the sort of the three pillars. There's engaging the customer, getting to scale, and changing systems.
Wonderful. And I have a feeling we'll have some follow-up questions in the chat around those topics. So to shift gears just a little bit, Scott, I would be remiss if I did not congratulate you on the recent announcement. Aerp has been named as a Baldrige National Quality Award recipient, just speaking to the excellence of Aerp. Tell us a little bit about, you know, what exactly is this award? What does it mean for Aerp's affiliation with Oats?
Well, thank you. I appreciate you recognizing that. That's been a labor of love. But for those that don't know, the Baldrige Award began in the mid to late 80s when then Secretary of Commerce Malcolm Baldrige, I believe it was under the Reagan administration. At that time, you know, American manufacturing was, its performance and its quality management was lackluster at that time. At least that was the perception. So they created this award to drive performance quality for U.S. entities of all types, not just manufacturing or tech. It was open to anybody from nonprofits to healthcare to you name it. So that's sort of what it was and what it is. And it's basically the nation's highest honor, which is bestowed upon organizations that's seen as the gold standard in performance excellence. Now, in order to win this award, we had to, or Aerp's leadership and management practices were evaluated by Baldrige examiners, independent third-party individuals that came in and looked at us from a top-down perspective, everything from the board management all the way down to paying bills and everything in between, from program delivery to cash management to leadership to staff development. I mean, you pick a topic, they covered it. And winning the award really, in the way we see it, is a validation of what we've been doing and what we do well. And then also it gives us, like any good examination, it gives us some areas of improvement or ways that we can help continue to transform our organization moving forward to drive more social mission. So we're very, I mean, like I said, it was a lot of work, but we're very proud that we won, and we're very proud of what we've done. And we have some, opportunities to continue to fine tune it from an operational perspective. And yeah, it was, so appreciate you bringing that up. It was a good, fun experience.
Thank you. So we received lots of very specific questions as well, right? Many of you here in today's audience engage with Senior Planet in really wonderful ways, but we're also getting questions from people who are members of AARP who are coming over to the fold and finding out about Senior Planet. Tom, can you tell us a little bit about if someone wants to take a free tech class taught in Spanish and they're a member of AARP, how do they do so?
Well, remember, we've got two different organizations. So as a member of AARP, you can continue to get all of the membership benefits directly from AARP. And as an Oats participant or Senior Planet participant, you can continue to get all of the Oats participant benefits. People need to understand, though, and I just want to be clear about this, that Oats is not limiting our programs to AARP members. We are still open to anyone, anywhere over the age of 60. And in fact, are now serving people 50 and above, but we target our programs to people over the age of 60. And we will continue to be free for people to come in and take those courses, no matter where they live, no matter whether they may have never even heard of AARP, they can still come right to Senior Planet and take a course. So we treat everybody the same. We're enthusiastic about people coming and making change. For people that are Spanish speakers, yo hablo español. I speak Spanish nicely, but I also have a whole bunch of people on my staff who are also excellent, fluent Spanish speakers, and we provide Spanish trainings and programmings. If you go to seniorplanet.org/Espanol, ESPANOL, then you'll see the Spanish offerings for people. And whenever people are not sure what to do or how to connect to things, they should reach out to, we have a hotline on seniorplanet.org. So you can go right to Senior Planet, the main site. You're going to see the hotline number. And if you have a question or you're stuck, just call that hotline and we'll find you help in Spanish. We also do have Chinese speakers and Russian speakers. We even have courses in Bengali here in New York City. So if you really have some, like a curveball question with a language, we're going to try to help you.
And one last question before we kind of switch gears to those sharing questions in the chat. What does this mean, this affiliation, what does this mean for current Senior Planet members, the community of people who have contributed monetarily to Senior Planet? What does this mean for that community of people?
This is a really important question because as Oats has been developing our bond with our participants over the years, and I'm really proud of how much connection we have, there's really a sense of shared mission with the Oats members. So Pam is on the call, and many of you know her. And over the last couple of years, Pam has been building up what we called a Senior Planet membership program. And what we've noticed, of course, is that AARP has, they are a member organization. So AARP exists as their whole framework is about membership. And it's a little bit different of a dynamic for them. They have specific benefits that they provide to members. They've established a whole pattern of working with members for over decades. And our membership model at Oats is comparatively new, and it's really about at Oats, our membership, what we were doing was building a model where it was about the sharing the impact. It was almost like a sponsoring of the impact at Oats and building a community around that in the organization. And the real requirement that we had was people make any kind of a contribution to Oats of $1 or more, and we would call you a member. The only thing that's going to change going forward is we're going to try to come up with a different name for that and not call it membership, because we don't want people to get confused between what they're doing with Oats and what they might be doing with AARP, which is, of course, being members over there. We want people to be able to continue doing exactly what they would do with AARP, regardless of their relationship to us. But if you want to help Oats with the mission, if you want to be a part of the community in a way that's more intensive than simply taking a class or coming to the sessions or they're reading the website, we do want to create a way for people to become partners in our impact. And so we're actually opening up a dialogue with the participants that are involved in Senior Planet right now and asking them to help us craft that messaging so that it's clear, come up with a new name for what we're going to call that relationship. But the relationship isn't going to change. You're still going to get your quarterly impact report, which, by the way, if you have not donated to Oats and been part of it, I want to call that out because Pam has done literally like life-changing work for us here, building those relationships. And the quarterly impact report that she put out last quarter that talked about the number of people that we served and the programs that we did, the kinds of change that we were able to measure for people was beyond what I was hoping would happen. It was just kind of like one of those total home runs. And we're going to keep doing that because it's pretty much the heart and soul of what we do. So we're going to come up with a somewhat new name. Don't know what it's going to be. Your ideas are welcome and encouraged, but we're really going to keep doing it in a really emphatic way, and membership will just convert into its next level of impact with a different name.
Great. So lots of great information has been shared so far, and I see we have lots of questions coming through the chat. Pam, not to put you too much on the spot, but I wonder if there's a question that sticks out that we can get started with.
Yeah, hi everyone. Nice to see you. Tom, thank you for the kind words, and it's wonderful to see so many familiar faces. I'm Pam, I'm the membership manager, and like Tom said, there's a lot of exciting stuff coming up, and I will be reaching out to members to talk about the name change and everything else you need to know. So look forward to hearing from you very soon. Suzanne and I have been keeping an eye on the chat, and there have been some really, really fantastic questions rolling in. Thank you everyone for sharing those. So let's start with this first one. I think this could go to Tom or Scott. Will this affiliation lead to more Senior Planet centers in other states?
All you, Tom.
Oh, I get this one.
The answer's easy.
We start with an easy question, right? Oh my gosh. So the Senior Planet Centers, I hope it does. We can't guarantee that, of course, because there are financial considerations and other things that come into play. But we think that there's certainly, right now, I'll just tell you where we come from on this. The first Senior Planet Center we created was in Manhattan, which is, sort of somewhat natural because that's near where our headquarters is. And then the second one that we ever created was in the North Country of New York, which is the very top part of the state near the Canadian border. And the reason we started a center up in such a more remote area was that it was rural. And we know that a lot of older people in the United States that live in rural areas are super isolated. They just don't have the same kinds of supports or some of the resources. And the isolation factor can really be a big issue for people. So we established a center in a mall in Plattsburgh, New York, and then we built a center in Colorado, which is in many cases, in my estimation, physically the most dramatic of them and very beautiful. We built a center in Palo Alto, California, and we have a small center that's a kind of more of a building block one that's in Texas now in San Antonio. The advantage of these centers is they create a physical location where people can visit us and make things happen. They're very intensive. Our staff are there. Our program environments are set up to really create a kind of an aspirational environment, so it doesn't feel like something that's done as an afterthought. But the centers are really like a temple of awesomeness for what people can bring in terms of change. And so if you want to change the world, a Senior Planet Center is a great place to do that. Now, how many centers should we have? It seems to me that having 50 of them seems like it might be overkill. Just certainly from where we sit right now, we've only got 5 and there's a lot to handle. But I do think that there are some obvious areas where we'd love to try to open up another one. The whole scenario in Texas, for example, we don't have a major center there, but we have a huge number of participants and a great team on the ground. And we feel like that area would be a good place that would be ripe for launching a center. Florida, for example, we just don't have enough work. I saw that Brian from Sophia's on the call, and they've been a great partner out there. And Florida could certainly use a Senior Planet Center that would bring some of that, energy and that we can really collaborate more successfully in those environments. And so I can imagine other parts of the country. So we're going to be taking that kind of step by step. And there's a financial consideration here because Oats we're still going to be an independent nonprofit and we still have to raise money. It's not like it just comes out of the sky for us. We're able to work with AARP and get some support from them, from some resources, and also support from their management team. Like they're helping us with our HR and they're helping us with our research and things like that. So we have assets there, but we still have to get local states and cities and foundations to support these programs. And so partly it will be related to some of the physical geographies and how much support we can get locally. Somebody just raised the question of Montgomery County, Maryland, which is one of my favorite places that Oats works and is where Bree started out. So good shout out there. I was on the phone this morning talking about how we might build more infrastructure in that corridor. Montgomery County is right now the anchor of our kind of Atlantic coast work. And so we want to expand on that to bring in Washington, D.C. and possibly even Baltimore and coordinate more across that area. Because those areas, first of all, it's an incredibly rich and diverse environment for older people that are doing amazing stuff. It's actually, I mean, I'm sitting here in New York City, but when I go to Montgomery County, I think it may be more diverse than a lot of our centers here in New York. And I just love that. I love the reach of people many of them are immigrants, and it's just a really vibrant environment for us to work in. So places like that, we're going to look to find a way to get some more footprint for the Senior Planet centers. It won't happen this year. We just are not going to be able to do it in the next 9 months or 10 months. But 2022, we may be able to try to get 1 or 2 more open, and we're going to have to feel that out until we feel like we've hit the right number of them that are supported and sustainable, and that we've got enough reach that people can really get to them when they want to. And then otherwise, we're going to have to do a lot more Zooms and a lot more community programming, because even though we only have 5 centers, last year we worked at 200 locations around the country because we partner. So we can partner with places right in your communities and bring Senior Planet programming even to locations that are partner sites, but not, complete Senior Planet centers.
If I could add something on that, Pam, I'm sure some of you, and I think I read it somewhere in one of the questions, if you think about Aerp as 38 million members and millions of others who still participate in our offerings, we consider ourselves to be a nationwide organization. We have offices in every state in the country. We advocate at the federal level, the state level, and sometimes the local community level. But us being in the communities is important. What I love about Oats is that it's an extension of that. And you have your physical locations in the Senior Planet centers, which, yes, the plan is to grow those. Obviously, we can't have one in every community. That'd be impossible. But, going back to the digital divide here, we did a pilot last summer. I think I've lost track of the days, Tom. It seems like years. But last summer, we did a pilot. We reached 18,000 people on classes on how to use Zoom. And, so we have the technology to be able to deliver services in a community way, much greater than we did years ago. And Senior Planet is another tool which helps us do that. So again, bringing the positives from both organizations to drive more scale, whether it's in more centers or more classes online or more community 200 communities, locations. The goal is to get as much scale as possible, knowing that we can't overwhelm Oats because we have 38 million and that would crush Oats. But there are ways to not do that.
I was just gonna
without crushing it.
I was just going to jump in there because there's this great comment in the chat right now, and I know I'm jumping by Pam there, but just wanted to flag this one. Somebody said that ARP members are millions. They have 38 million members, and it's not practical to put them all on Senior Planet because they would crush it. And of course, that is certainly something we have to take into account. We can't put 38 million people onto every one of our programs and classes because it's too many. What we can do is grow carefully and intentionally so that we're able to build systems that reach people in different ways. Some of the sessions are still going to be limited to 12 to 15 people, and that's going to be part of the model that we use. And some of the sessions will be more expansive, where we might be able to do a morning stretch class with 300 or 400 people. Some of those are working, but we need to make sure that there's a kind of a strategy for working with people where you get a chance to be connected in small groups. We're going to keep doing those, and the technology is actually getting easier for that. You can do breakouts in the Zoom sessions, and we're actually retraining some of our staff now so that they can build some of those smaller group activities and work with partners to do that, so that we're able to keep that level of intimacy. Will it all be perfect? No. Will we be able to reach more people? Yes. Will we have a dialogue with you about how to make sure that that continues to be front and center for us? Definitely. And I know that some people are, sending notes about that as well. Let's have the conversation. We'll find a way to do it. And I think that we're never going to lose that sense of small group stuff that we've got, but we're going to add different pieces of it to make sure that we have a better system.
Thank you, Tom and Scott. That was a great answer. Thank you. And we have a couple more questions that we're going to probably be able to cover. I just want to remind everyone, we're not going to be able to answer everyone's questions, unfortunately, but we will be answering all of them in a blog post or an article on seniorplanet.org. That article will go out in our weekly email, The Orbit, and Suzanne already put a link in the chat where you can sign up to receive our weekly newsletters, including The Orbit, if you would like to see that follow-up come into your inbox every Tuesday. Alrighty, on to the next question. So a couple people are asking, why specifically, so we've seen the beautiful new logo, why does it say Senior Planet from AARP? And to that point, instead of, with or another word. And to that point, would you describe this as more of a collaborative effort or more of an integrative effort?
Want me try that one first, Tom?
You can start, and I'll add as necessary.
So, unlike Tom, I'm not the branding person. I've never worked in branding. I'm an ops and finance guy at heart. But I think what AARP has tried to do is to show up in different places that we don't normally show up in. And our goal is to, how do we use our resources to drive more scale? Now, we added another recent nonprofit, Wish of a Lifetime, which is a small Denver nonprofit that focuses on providing, granting wishes to older people to fulfill their lifelong dreams. It's an amazing nonprofit based in Denver. But our goal was to, this is about, and I want to use the word program in the sense, not in the traditional sense, but think about Wish of a Lifetime, think about Oats as a new part of AARP. And it is part of the family, and from denotes more of the family as opposed to with. And again, I'm not one to play on words, but a wish to me signifies collaboration, from signifies integration and collaboration. And that's what this is really about. It's the integration and collaboration between two really good organizations to drive more social impact across the country and to people over the age of 50. Tom, you want to add to that, or?
I think that pretty much sums it up. I think the concept here is, from a branding standpoint, we're part of this broader network of affiliations that AARP has. The foundation is part of that. The Legal Council for the Elderly, which is this great organization in Washington, D.C., is part of their affiliation network. And the idea is that they support these programs. And so they're helping kind of present them to the world to some degree. We also obviously bring some impact measurement and support to them in the sense that their mission is advanced by helping us do our work. But it seems like from a branding standpoint, that particular language seems to accurately describe what we're talking about. And there is an affiliation there, which is a structural relationship between the organizations. But the question of integrative, that's not really the word we're using, because we're maintaining our independence, and we're still going to have our board, and we're still going to have our strategies, and we're not going to change our language in the way that we do our work in any really significant ways. So that's just not really the word that we've been using.
Great. Thank you, Scott and Tom. And Scott, I'm glad you were able to touch on the other recent affiliation AARP went through. That was one of the questions that came up in the chat, asking if there's been any sort of similar partnerships with other nonprofits. So I'm glad that already that was touched upon. So this next question will be for Tom. And we had in the chat that I hope Senior Planet is able to maintain its creative spirit and continue to take risks. How do you think this new affiliation will allow us to continue our creative spirit and take even bigger risks?
I love these questions. Well, part of the dynamic here is that Oats has always been about innovating since the first day. And when we started our programs, we went out to people and said, how do we want to learn technology? What do people need to do? And when they responded, we learned that, for example, people wanted to take a course. They didn't want to have to pay in the outset because people were uncomfortable they'd had so many negative experiences with technology that, for example, making courses free, making them intensive, doing them over multiple weeks, were all these innovative ideas that we had. And I remember going to people who were some of our funders in the beginning and saying, we had this idea to run a program a certain way. And they were like laughing at me in the meetings, like, you're going to run 10-week courses twice a week with a paid trainer, and you're going to do it in the community locations where people already are. You're going to build them computer labs, and you're not going to charge for that. And so how are you going to make this group work? And we were like, oh, we'll figure that out. We'll find a way to do it. So the first level was establishing a program, and then the second level was growing it to more than one site, and then the third level was getting some sustainable funding so that we were getting paid and people were getting jobs from it. And then we went outside of New York. So each level of the work has involved a kind of a creative element to it, and that creativity has also carried into the programs. So I don't go into every program and tell people how to write those classes. I don't want to go into the program and tell them how to write the classes. That's not my job. My job is to set up a platform that creates a safe place for somebody like Kaz to do an amazing program where he's doing fitness and morning stretches and mindfulness, or a program where the book club is available for people that want to share the reading, or a program where people are able to do advocacy or learning together. And so each of the programs looks a little bit different from us over time, although the way that we hold ourselves accountable is that we try to measure outcomes in certain areas. So we look for social engagement, we look for financial security, we look for civic participation, people being able to get information about their government, nonprofit environments. We look for creative expression, and we look for health and wellness. Those are our big areas where we want to see results. And so in the next phase of our work that we're looking at this year, first of all, the relationship to Aerp means that we are, at least organizationally, we have a kind of a backstop, like an organization that's going to help us so that we're not as vulnerable to the changes in a specific funding pattern or specific location, but we have more continuity. And more continuity means the staff stay in place and they can keep making new programs. That's the essence of people being able to be creative, is to say, let's be there in order to deliver the programs and create an environment where people can do the projects and do the research and then deliver something. And then we call it iterating, do it again and try to make improvements each time. So that model is going to continue. And frankly, in the whole COVID scenario, one of the risks of what's been happening is a lot of nonprofits are losing their funding, and they're having to lay people off. Places have shut their doors. Places have lost staff who have been some of the heroic people that are working in this sector are now not working in the sector, and that's a terrible blow to all of us. So my job is to make sure that we have a platform where people can keep doing this work and be safe to do great work. And we've also been, frankly, working on a bit of an organizational reassessment over the last couple of months, and knowing that we had this new relationship with Aerp, where we are able to examine how we supervise. And I know this is probably inside baseball for people and maybe not that interesting, but if we're very good with our staff, like I have to say, one of the things I'm proudest of is that Oats has the most passionate staff of any nonprofit I've ever worked with. People just really, they get up early, they stay up late, they really go to work trying to make a difference here. And I think that our team is really good. And so being able to unleash their capacity to do better work and support them better is going to make a real difference in terms of the creativity. Long answer, but there's all those different parts of the puzzle.
Thank you. Thank you. And I just want to say, so we have probably time for one or two more questions, maybe. And so let's start with this one. I would like to know how you envision the offerings of Senior Planet will change with this new affiliation. Tom, we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but would you like to elaborate?
I mean, I think to some degree, in the very short term, I don't see anything radically changing that would be noticeably different for people within the next 6 months. I just don't see anything surprising there. I think there will be some overlap with Aerp at some programming, which would be kind of fun for us, a chance to bring in some of their projects that they're doing and cross list them on Senior Planet. They have a project now they're doing called the Virtual Community Center, so we'll be able to do some integration with some of the programming that way. I think we'll probably have some more offerings and a little bit more breadth of the offerings. So it'll give us a chance to experiment with some of the areas that are not, just Zoom classes, but are a little bit more about the lifestyle of aging. And then I think also one of the real priorities that we have that I think we will be able to do is build more local programming. That's one of the big areas that is part of our emphasis for the year is how do we get the teams in Palo Alto or the North Country or Montgomery County and make sure that we're taking advantage of their expertise. This is not a New York program anymore. And, somebody mentioned in the chat that some of our programming has at times felt like it was like a New York thing. And we're trying to move past that and make it more dynamic and more decentralized. And I think you will see that change over the next year.
Great, thank you. I think we want to end on not a question, but a really great comment that we received in the chat and just hear both from Tom and Scott what your thoughts are on that. So, and I'm sorry, I don't have your name, but someone wrote, "This is so important for seniors to not get left behind in terms of technology in a world that is becoming so technology focused." Tom, do you have anything you want to reflect on about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, Scott brought up ageism earlier today, and I think that that's part of the framework here where we're having to kind of reframe what we think about as aging today. When I was a kid, when people were hit 60 or 65, there was this idea that you had to retire, and maybe my grandparents wanted to go play golf, and that was critical for them because they were running out of time. And it doesn't feel like that anymore. There's certainly people that want to play golf, and that's what their direction is. But for others, there's a kind of a new era of rethinking how we age. You hit 60 and you think, okay, this is a chance for me to build a new phase in my life that's going to make a difference. And we're all doing that together because we've added this human lifespan just over the last few generations. And so we're all still inventing what it looks like. Technology doesn't have to be a barrier, right? Like if you thought about what we're all trying to do together and you think about what technology empowers or enables, it goes together like chocolate and peanut butter, right? Technology allows us to cross over geographies and to build social networks. It enables us to be economically productive. It enables us to be more engaged and more creative and learn more. And so our feeling is that the world should not be leaving seniors behind in this technology era. In fact, it should be this place where we can actually flip that equation, and it can be the thing that everybody says, yeah, I turned 60, so I had to really retool my tech skills like everybody else does, and then put that to bear to make a difference. And that's the vision we have here. I think it's actually starting to happen. We see it happening right here. And the trick, of course, is to build that into a bigger social trend.
So,
oh yeah, Scott.
Yeah, I was going to say, Tom said it well. I mean, there's no need for me to add on to that because that was a great answer. I concur completely.
Case, I will hand it over to Bree to wrap things up. Just as a reminder, we will be answering all the unanswered questions, and I will be putting an email in the chat, specifically my email, where you can send any more questions that might come up, and we'll answer those too.
Thank you all so much. There's been lively discussion, lots of great feedback. We know this is all very new, so we really appreciate you all showing up today so we can all kind of discuss and deal with these things together. Just want to reiterate, this will be available on Senior Planet's YouTube channel. So if you joined late, want to share today's recording, it will be available on the YouTube channel. As Pam mentioned, it's also going to get circulated. If you're signed up for any of our newsletters, I guarantee there will be a link to the recording. And if you still can't track it down, stay tuned. Pam's about to share her email in the chat. where you can get a hold of today's program. Be also looking out for the article on seniorplanet.org that addresses a lot of your other unanswered questions. In the meantime, we encourage you to still come join us on Senior Planet. We look forward to seeing many of you virtually until the time comes we can see each other in person again. I just want to especially thank both Tom and Scott for joining today, for both of your time, valuable time. There's a lot going on, and we just really appreciate you both taking the time to really talk with us and answer some of the many questions that have come up.
Thank you, Bree. There's nothing more valuable than spending time with our members and our friends here. So, and you guys have done a great job putting all this together. I wanted to thank you, and to Suzanne also, who I know she's in the backdrop there, but she did a lot of the work to set this up.
And thank you, everybody. Appreciate having me.
Wonderful. We will leave this meeting open for a few moments as people, I'm sure, are getting the email address down, and then we'll close it here in a few seconds. So thank you all so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Great. Thanks, guys.